Ladies and gentlemen, here's Victoria.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming today. Appreciate it, thank you. So, okay, so I'm an investigative journalist. I started out wanting to get in the mind of serial killers, which we'll get to later. But what I'm doing now is I find that when you are really passionate about a subject, that is what will propel you into actually going out and finding a way to either write a story, write a book, or do a TV show, or even make a documentary. So the most important thing is to find out the people that you want to interview first. So that's tracking them down, using websites, using even Facebook. It's very simple to find people nowadays with modern technology and the internet. So people finders, Facebook, all those ones. Keep calling people and writing to people and emailing people to see if they know someone who knows someone. It's always good to look at legal documents, court and trial transcripts. If you think, for example, that you want to go into criminology and you want to focus on criminals and why they become criminals, I would pick out a certain inmate in a prison and start at the source. Start by writing to that inmate. That's the most important thing. Then go around it and write to the law enforcement officers, detectives, the judge, victims' family members who are the most important, and the inmates' family members also equally important. Find the people first and see how far you can get, but start with the inmate if you're doing criminology. If you're doing innocent people and you think someone's been wrongly convicted, it could be someone who's just got arrested, it could be someone that you're watching on television, a trial that's going on, and you just are compelled because you feel the person's innocent. Write to that inmate if you can, and keep writing. If you do get a response, then you've got gold. That is the main core to what you're trying to do. And then from there, I would sit in the trial. So being a journalist is the most important thing, is to go to the root, the core, and get in as much as you can. Don't take no for an answer. If they say, oh, you can't come into this courtroom, but why? Why? I'm going to sit in the back. I've got my little notebook. I'm doing a school project. I'm not teaching anyone to lie, but I'm teaching you to just maybe bend the rules a bit if you have to. Because being a journalist means you've got to have drive, you've got to have motivation, and you've got to have passion for your subject. So I'm talking about inmates, guilty and innocent, totally opposite ends of the spectrum, because that's where I have a passion. Criminology, and more of a passion now, is for helping the innocent people on death rows and life without parole. How do I think they're wrongly convicted? When a whole jury, prosecutors, defense, cops, law enforcement have convicted them, how could they possibly be innocent? Well, I'm telling you they can. Because many years ago, actually 3 or 4 years ago, I used to think, well, if a jury's convicted them and the cops arrested them, I don't need to hear it. They're guilty. I don't want to hear it. They look like a bad guy, and they are. And the cops said they were, and the jury said they were, and they were convicted. But that, sadly, is not true. That is really not true. How I know this is because I've gone to these trials, I've studied these court transcripts, I've gone in and met these inmates, and I've tried to trip them all up by asking the same question in a different way. Got to trip them up. When everything leads to the fact that they probably were railroaded with the justice system, because sadly, that's what's going on in America today, and possibly other countries. Well, because someone robbed a liquor store when they were younger, or because someone dealt drugs in the neighborhood, and because someone maybe mouthed off to the cops, well, now there's been a murder that happened. But that guy wasn't there at the scene. But you know what? This guy didn't want to say that it was his brother there. So he says to the cop, well, I was there with someone else. The cop, I'm afraid to say sometimes, not always, they will say, are you sure it was that guy? Are you sure it wasn't this guy? And I'm going to give you an example of what happened in Oklahoma death row, and where I did save a man's life 3 times from execution. There was an innocent man called Jeffrey David Matthews. 17 years ago, he was accused of murdering his uncle, okay? He was about 18, 19 at the time. This is a very gentle guy. He's a very religious guy. However, he was a smart ass when he was 19. He'd mouth off to the cops, he would deal a few drugs, he was messed up with the wrong crowd, but he had no intention to kill anybody. And he never did, and I'll stand by that today, because he never killed anyone. However, in Oklahoma, possibly in Texas, I don't know Texas so well, but in Oklahoma and I think in Georgia and certain states, they're not so clean, let's say, as they are in other states like California. But what they did was, the person that actually did the murder was a boy and his uncle, without saying any names. This boy, friends with Jeffrey David Matthews, this boy didn't want to say to his uncle, but it was his uncle that was with him that went into the home of Jeff Matthews' uncle and his wife. Didn't want to get his uncle into trouble. So there's two uncles here, don't want to confuse you. What actually happened was Jeffrey Matthews did organize a burglary, okay, of the uncle's home on the Saturday when his uncle and aunt were out of town. But he told this to two guys, this nephew and his uncle, right? They said, we're going in on a Saturday. He said this on the Tuesday. Well, the uncle and the nephew were talking, what do we need to split the $70,000 for 3 ways? Why don't we just go together tomorrow? We don't care if the uncle's there. We won't wake him up. We'll go at 5 in the morning. Well, that's what they did. So this man and his uncle went in, and the uncle of Jeff Matthews. Well, Jeff Matthews was sleeping with his girlfriend and his newborn baby. But this man and his uncle went in and said, oh, we're not scared. Well, of course, this old man and his wife woke up. This man comes down to defend his home with a gun, I think. I'm not sure about the gun, but he came down to defend his home. And he was killed. And Minnie Short, his wife, her throat was slashed. Now, her throat was slashed by Tracy Dyer. Tracy Dyer didn't want to turn his uncle in. His uncle's still out there. What I don't understand is, when there was the document and the police report, when Tracy Dyer said, I was with this person, then he said, well, no, I was with this person, I was with this person, I was with this person. The 5th name that was crossed out, because I have the document, was Jeff Matthews. So the point was, Michael Mars, the arresting officer, was told to go in and arrest Jeff Matthews. He's asleep in his home. He arrested him. Why do I have to arrest this Jeff Matthews? Do as you say, do as I say, or it's your job. That's some of the corruption that goes on in America today. I found Michael Mars. I went every state in America looking for this guy because he was no longer in Oklahoma because of the way they deal with the justice system there. Living in Colorado, he went on camera for me saying, I know Jeffrey Matthews was innocent, and he was about to die 4 days later. So if it wasn't for Michael Mars, I couldn't have got those days of execution. But if it wasn't for me finding Michael Mars and having that drive and passion, we couldn't have got it. So it's a combination of people reaching out to people to find the truth. So, found Michael Mars, 1 stay of execution for 60 days. And it went on like this 3 times. However, on January the 8th of 2011, a new governor stepped in. A lady, I wasn't dealing with her. I was dealing with Governor Brad Henrick. And I'm afraid to say, 3 days later, on the 11th of January 2011, they killed Jeff Matthews. They killed him. And I want to make Jeff Matthews an example of the justice system today. One example. Because there's others out there with life and death sentences. And I have a real passion for that.